This is a case study video going behind the scenes of a recent Webflow build I completed for a client of mine. They are called Rawls Architecture. It is a one-person architecture studio located in North Florida. And this was a very fun project because it was a quick one-page website build along with a CMS connected portfolio in Webflow. This made it fun because the fact that the scope of the project was fairly small allowed for a lot more room for creativity. And this was very important for this client in particular because being in the architecture and design space, obviously the design of the website for this firm needs to be on point, because if the architecture studio in this case does not have a well-designed website, then how can they honestly tell their clients that they're going to be able to design them a beautiful home? So this is the website we came up with. I'm going to show you real quick what it looks like, and then we'll go into the branding phase, the strategy phase of the project, as well as the web design and development process, just so you can get a clear behind the scenes look at everything it took to get this website live and up and running. So as you can see here, we're looking at this like changing slideshow background type effect of different project photography. One of the key things we lean into in this project was a Southern design angle, because this client works locally with clients in Northern Florida, which is technically the South here in the US. Based on my meetings with the client, I worked one-on-one with the principal of the firm. I came to discover that she really leaned into that Southern design style. This was something I was unfamiliar with beforehand, but quickly became acquainted with as I did research on the different design styles this firm specializes in. So that is something we really lean into, because when we look at the competitor research in a second, you'll see that very few other firms were actually doing this. So instantly we have this hero section that is really going to captivate people's attention with the parallax zoom out background effect, and then also just giving them a quick overview or a quick preview of various different projects the client has worked on. Then scrolling on down, we have some quick facts, the experience we're highlighting, the process we're highlighting, and then again back to that Southern design lifestyle focus I talked about. Then we're introducing the principal of the firm right away. This is a one-person architecture firm slash studio. One of the unique selling factors for this client is going to be that personalized one-to-one experience she offers her clients. That is why I felt it was important to get the principal of the firm front and center into the website. Then after this quick about section, we go right into the portfolio of work here, so you can see the different projects. And I try to give it a very like magazine type look, if you will. So we just have these photo grids here, very minimalist, not much going on, but when you do hover, you get the name of the project. And then this little hover effect makes it very clear that people can click into it and go into the project. Then we call out specifically what types of projects the client works on here. So in this case, we are only highlighting the new residential builds as well as the renovations and additions work the client can do here. Then scrolling on down, we have the testimonial section. So just highlighting all the different testimonials past clients have given this architecture studio based on their work together. This is connected in the Webflow CMS, and basically using the FinSuite attributes, the slider is able to auto-populate with those items in there. But this just makes it easy for my client if she ever wanted to go in and add more testimonials to the website as she gets more of them. Rather, she can just add it in a very easy to use CMS, which I basically provided video training on as well as part of this project, and it's very simple for her to do that. Then we go right into the different design styles here. So these are very Southern, as you can see. So low country, arts and crafts, Florida cracker, and then contemporary as well. And then you'll see we're using this cool tab-like design. So this way, it doesn't take up a bunch of screen real estate or anything like that. And if people are only interested in arts and crafts, for example, they can click on this and get all the information they need. Then we're having a section here on the process. So we're talking about planning, design, and documentation. Technically, from an architect's perspective, these phases would be a little bit different, obviously. There'd be like schematic design, site analysis, design development. You get the idea. It's much more technical. But we decided to revise the process because while the architect, of course, here still uses that standard architectural process, it's just not very client facing or very client friendly. So this, from a marketing perspective, I think is much better for actually providing the prospective client who's checking out the website what the actual process is going to look like from their end. Then we also wanted to highlight the fact that the client is very active in the local Northern Florida community with nonprofit organizations such as Habitat for Humanity and Take Stock in Children, and we're highlighting that here. So that was very important to the clients. Then we have FAQs here. I always tell my clients, the less open questions prospects have in their mind as they're browsing through the website, the more likely they are to actually reach out for an initial consultation. That is why I always recommend that FAQs are included. And then you'll see here, because this is a one-page website, it's very conversion focused. So basically anywhere they're scrolling, they can hit this schedule consultation button, and then this modal pop-up pops up. This is key because based on various different conversion rate optimization analysis, many times this modal pop-up actually gets better conversion rates because it's this focused experience here. So you can't really scroll anywhere else or interact with any of the other website content. You just need to exit this out if you want to do that. But otherwise, you can just fill out the form and then someone can get in contact with this firm for a consultation. So that is basically the website here. And you can see we have this cool slideshow-like effect. This is all built using Webflow and the RayLoom library. Like I said, that is the only page on the website here other than the portfolio items, which I'll show you at the end. But then if you were to use the menu here, it'll just auto jump to the different sections we have on the website. So the reason why we went with a one-page site design is because the client had a very limited budget. So I told her, based on your budget, the best I can do is a one-page website. And she really wanted to work with me because she had seen my work here on YouTube and had liked my portfolio. I was very glad we were able to make it work because this client turned out to be very easy to work with. She brought a lot of great feedback and input to the project to make it better than I would have been able to make by myself, and overall it came out to be very nice. I will talk a bit more about the design in a second here. Let's start with the branding and strategy phase of the project. I'm not a big fan of presentations, really. I'm not even a big fan of meetings. I only will ask my client to a meeting if it's absolutely necessary. I do generally like to kick off a project with a website strategy session. This is a bit more streamlined than I normally go with for a regular full-size website build, just because of the limited scope as well as the limited budget here. So you can see our agenda was just aligning on the goals, the sitemap, the content. We looked at some competitor research, and then we also looked at some different websites for visual direction to align on that. So oftentimes I just use these slides as a conversation starter to keep the meeting very focused. Nothing bothers me more than being in a meeting with a vendor or something where they have this very detailed, nicely put together PowerPoint presentation. Like, nothing puts me to sleep faster, and I feel I just don't want to be providing that to my clients either. So this was just basically a few bullet points to make sure we were aligned on the goals of the project, because I believe we only had one meeting before this, before actually moving forward with the website. Now you will see here on the sitemap slide, it is a very simple project. Again, only a homepage and a portfolio CMS template. This slide is just a list of the different types of content I thought would be a good fit for this project. So it basically was a conversation starter. I was either recommending this type of content or questioning if we have this type of content to add to the website. This is important in my view to talk with the client at the start of the project, because oftentimes the client is going to need to provide me with this content. So for example, photography of her portfolio project. So I always want to give them as early notice as possible as to the types of content we're going to need. So that way they can get it over to me as soon as possible. And that way we're not going to be risking delays, because quite honestly, oftentimes content is the #1 factor that delays projects. So then, as part of the strategy phase here, I did a competitor research. So here I highlighted just my broad takeaways. But I looked at some competitors, as you can see here, and this was based on a list that the client had given me, but then I had also done my own research as well to find other competitors in the area. I basically just gave a summary of what I thought about each of these different brands and websites, and then I do believe we also screen shared and looked at the websites together, so that way I was able to get my client's feedback. Going on to the visual direction, so here I had a couple different questions just to get the ball rolling on what I thought the design should be, because the client, based on our initial conversation, she was very design focused and design conscious. Some clients, they don't really know what good design is. That's why they're hiring someone like me. Others have a more specific aesthetic that they want to go for. I'm fine to work with either, but in this case, I could tell the clients had much more design expertise. Oftentimes, when I'm working with these architects, that's often the case. So these are just some clear questions I had to guide our conversation. And then here on the next slide, I found a bunch of different competitor websites and also just some like website templates to get my client's feedback on the design. So this is good because I was able to see what my client did and what she didn't like. And this makes it much more easier for me to move forward with the actual design of the website. So there were two clear deliverables coming out of the strategy phase. Number one was going to be the specific client's avatars. The client did have a good idea of who her main client avatars were, but it wasn't super specific. So I had recommended in our initial sales conversation, we do that. We really narrow down who exactly these client avatars are. So their demographics, the key purchase drivers, their wants and aspirations, and then their fears and frustrations. We had three in this case, so it's going to be the successful professional, the established retiree, it is Florida after all, and the growing family, because a lot of people are moving to Florida. So those were the different client avatars. This is very important because obviously when it comes to writing up the copy of the website and just overall creating a coherent, comprehensive marketing communication message, we need to know who we're talking to before we can actually formulate what we're going to say. So that is something I always tell my clients. The client needed a bit more of a coherent brand message I picked up in our initial conversation. So I recommended just to do this quick and dirty story brand workshop. This is something I often recommend to clients when they either don't have the budget or have a solid brand in place, but it needs to be tweaked and refined. We need to create a coherent marketing message around that brand to communicate it effectively, stand out from competitors, and essentially establish a category of one positioning. So that's what I did here. We basically break down who the hero is or wants or problem. We offer the plan, and then we offer what the success is going to be like. And then based on that, we're able to create a company one-liner that is going to be used as like their main tagline. I've done a video about the story brand summary in the past and what this workshop looks like, so I will link that above. Now we're out of the strategy phase and into the design phase, which I was telling my client from the start, this is probably going to be the most fun part of the project. So we always start with UX wireframes here, and you can see here I put together an initial homepage design. We didn't even have working copy in this case, and then we have basically what the project ended up to be. You already saw the website, so you can see this was like a very rough prototype, as you can see. But Figma is great because it allows my client to preview the designs here. In this case, we're just focused on the layout and content structure. You can see they're able to leave comments based on their feedback here. And this is also fantastic because not only are they able to preview what the website is going to look like, this is the portfolio template here that's connected to the CMS to display the projects. Not only are they able to see what it looks like here, but also you can see here I'm just in my web browser, so I don't need to have the client download any software, so it just makes things easier. After the UX wireframes were done, I then also compiled a mood board to get more of my client's design feedback. This way she was able to look at these websites, tell me what she likes, what she doesn't like. In this case, the client was very hands-on, which I did appreciate. It's not always like that, but the client was hands-on and she actually went out of her way to compile other various websites that she liked, which was very helpful for me for formulating the design. Now, speaking of the design, let's go into the UI wireframes here. So you can see there were a couple different revisions, 3 in total, which is what I normally include in the project. But in this case, they were fairly minor after the first one. So you can see here, this is very similar to what we ended up with. Client was able to give me some input on terms of types of projects to list out and things of that nature. So in terms of the color scheme here, as you can see, I'll talk about that a little bit here. One, I wanted to play around with textures here. So the client had given me a list of all the different textures and design materials she regularly uses in her architecture projects. So we went with that here. This is a marble background, if I recall correctly. I did just lighten it up a little bit so that the text would be easier to read on top of the website. A lot of the other websites we looked at were very austere and boring. They didn't have any color. They didn't have a lot of playful elements. When it came to the design of this website, I really wanted to integrate colors that were very warm and coastal and marine, because to me that's what Florida is all about. I'm from New Jersey and I have gone on several family vacations down to Florida, as people do from the tri-state area. So I was familiar with the area because of that, and that's why I wanted to have these kind of coastal colors, reminding you of going to the beach, for example. But then we also have some navy blues here and some other darker colors just to round out the design. So I thought this was a very nice coherent color palette. And then note, we're also using the serif text, which the client liked from other examples we had looked at. I agree. I think the serif fonts here add just a lot more design values to the website in a very minimalist type way, and it's very on brand for this client and her industry. So as you can see, there were a couple different rounds of revisions, and then when it comes to presenting these different designs and revisions, I always will record a screen recording presentation similar to this video right here. So this way the client is never in the dark. She can just see very clearly my exact design thought process, and I explain what things are going to look like and different animations we can have. So this is just very helpful for my clients in my view, and actually being able to integrate and visualize the final design before it actually gets developed on the final website here. You can see all throughout, if you didn't notice the first time around, we have very subtle animations. The text will animate in, we'll have different photo animations. This just adds a much more dynamic feel to the website and just brings it to life in my view. Now, if we go to look at the different projects here, so let's see, I like this one. You will see here that we have a hero photo, we have the name of the project, we have a quick description. So one thing to note is also that I did write all the copy for this website, so whether you love it or you hate it, you know who to blame. But for these project descriptions, I had given my client a spreadsheet just so it would be very easier for her to give me a quick overview on the project. In this case, she just gave me bullet points and I turned it into full paragraphs, which is totally fine. And then she was able to simply send over the information in terms of the project type, services, style, location, things of that nature. As you can see here, everything that populates the right-hand side. And then we have a photo gallery of the projects, a CMS connected gallery slider for people to browse additional projects accordingly. And then finally a CTA to actually start the project. And then again, we're brought up with that modal inquiry box. So this project turned out to be very good, very small project, as you can see. Also do note that this is in a light box gallery, so we have this very interactive full screen effect. So yeah, this project, it basically went entirely according to plan. I believe it took just about 3 months, which is exactly what I said it would take. The client was very happy with the results, and it was a fantastic project. Now, if you are an architect, whether you are the principal of a firm, a marketing director, or maybe even just a administrative team member watching this video, and you think your firm could benefit from a revamped brand presence and sleek new website, then I would definitely love to help you out. I actually have an agency called Chatfield Square, which is exclusively dedicated to working with boutique architecture studios and design firms, and essentially we're helping other firms throughout the US and even Europe in some cases elevate their digital presence so that they can attract their ideal clients and essentially be able to leave a lasting legacy in terms of their design style. So I'm going to leave a link in the description if you want to learn more about the agency. You can check out some of our other case studies just like this. We've worked with several fantastic architecture studios and interior design firms. And if you want to talk to me about a project, feel free to submit the form on that website, just a couple quick questions. And then based on everything you provide to me, I'll get back to you if you're a good fit. Would love to help you out. Would love to have an initial conversation. So let me know. Otherwise, thanks for watching the video. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.